My parents missed my baby shower for my sister's vacation. She's family. You're just independent, Mom texted. I replied, okay. That afternoon she tried taking $2,700 from my account. I closed every access point. 2 hours later she called me screaming, but I wasn't done yet. The morning of my baby shower my mom texted me. She needs us more, you're okay. That was it. No hello. No apology. Just that. She was my younger sister, Cameron, and apparently she was having some kind of breakdown over a breakup and decided she needed to fly to Mexico for the weekend. My parents, of course, went with her. They were supposed to fly into town for my party. They helped plan it, pick the venue, even offered to bring cupcakes. Then out of nowhere they rerouted to Tulum and didn't call. Just a casual 7-word text saying they were canceling dinner. I was standing in the kitchen with a tray of mini sandwiches when I read this. I remember thinking, are you serious now? This wasn't just a party. This was my first child. My first child. My first grandchild. I was 31, I'd been through a difficult pregnancy with gestational diabetes, swollen feet, insomnia, all of that. And now the one person I expected to be there for me, my mom, had decided that Cameron needed her more. I didn't answer. I didn't ask for an explanation. I just went on with my life. My husband knew I wasn't in the mood, but I told him I didn't want to talk about it. People were already starting to arrive, armfuls of pink bags and trinkets, and I didn't want to ruin it. I forced myself to smile. Opening presents. Laughing at jumpsuits with little strawberries on them. At 1:08 p.m. I got an email from the bank. Unusual withdrawal attempt. $2,700. This was from an old joint account that I had with my mom when I was in my 20s and still living at home. She opened it with me to help me manage my accounts while I was in college. I hadn't touched it in over a year. But she still had access. And now, while I was having my baby shower, the one she missed, she was trying to get almost $3,000 out of it. No warning. No explanation. Just trying to take it. I didn't even hesitate. I went into my bedroom, locked the door, called the bank, and froze every account she could touch. I revoked access, changed all the passwords, canceled my cards, and made sure nothing else was connected to her. It was like flipping a switch. I didn't even get angry, I just knew this was the last straw. When I was done, I texted her back. Just one word. That was it. I went outside and rejoined the party. My husband asked what I was doing and I said I was tired and needed some air. I didn't say a word about money. I didn't need to. 2 hours later my phone started to light up. Ring after ring. Voicemail after voicemail. Then the messages. First it was, call me now. Then, what did you do? Then, why did you shut me out? And that's when she really started to get angry. She said I was being selfish. That I had a hormonal block. That I didn't understand how hard it was for Cameron right now, how fragile she was. She said I was overreacting and making a huge mistake. I didn't answer. I didn't want to make excuses anymore. But that night something stuck with me. It wasn't guilt, it was something else. A question I hadn't asked in a long time. Why did my mom still need access to my money? Why was she trying to get so much of it now? It didn't make sense. My dad had a pension. They weren't rich, but they weren't desperate either. So I started digging. And what did I find? It made everything worse. I couldn't sleep that night. Even after the party, after everyone left and the house was quiet, I kept thinking about that bank notification. The amount. The timing. The complete lack of shame. My mom had skipped one of the biggest days of my life to sip margaritas in Tulum with Cameron, and while I was cutting a cake that said, "It's a girl," she tried to drain my account. I kept replaying her voicemails in my head. The entitlement in her voice. Like I was the one who betrayed her. Like I should have just let her take the money, no questions asked, because she's my mom and that's how it's always been. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't adding up. So the next morning I made some calls. Quiet ones. One to my cousin Paige, who still talks to Cameron regularly. Another to my dad's sister who lives near my parents. And one to a mutual friend of my mom's who works in real estate. I didn't even have to dig hard. People love to talk when they think you already know the story. Within 24 hours I had the answer. My mom had taken out a mortgage 3 weeks earlier, in her own name, to buy an apartment for Cameron. A full 1-bedroom unit in a brand new complex across town. Not rent it. Buy it. That $2,700 she tried to withdraw from my account? It was part of the down payment. She never mentioned it. Never even asked. Just assumed I wouldn't notice. I felt sick. Not because of the money, but because of the principle. I was about to have a baby. I was planning for hospital bills and diapers and formula. And while I was comparing strollers on sale, my mom was co-signing on a mortgage for her adult daughter who couldn't stay in a relationship longer than 6 months. And the best part? Cameron hadn't even moved in yet. She was still living in her old place. According to Paige, she was waiting to see if her ex would come back before deciding what to do. So my mom blew off my shower, tried to take my money without asking, and bought a backup apartment for someone who wasn't even sure if she wanted it. I didn't confront her. Not right away. I wanted to sit with it. I wanted to see what she would do next, what else she would try. And then just a few days later, the twist I never expected landed in my lap. Cameron cut her off. 3 days after the baby shower, my mom started panicking. Not about me. Not about the baby I was days away from delivering. But about Cameron. She'd stopped responding. At first it was the usual concern. A few texts, some missed calls. I ignored it. Figured she'd get bored and move on to some other drama. But then the messages started getting longer. My mom called 3 times in one day and left voicemails that actually sounded shaken. She asked if I'd heard from Cameron. Said she wasn't picking up. Said it wasn't like her. I knew better. Later that night I got a DM from my cousin Paige. It was a screen recording of Cameron's private Instagram story, the one only her closest friends could see. Definitely not our mom. In it, Cameron was sitting on the floor of a brand new apartment, holding a wine glass, a candle burning behind her. Next to her was a guy I'd never seen before. Bald, shirtless, covered in tattoos. She leaned into him, kissed his cheek, smiled into the camera like her life had never been better. The caption said, "Finally at peace. No more pressure, no more noise. Just us." The apartment was the one my mom had bought her. Fully furnished. All the pieces my mom had chosen and paid for, the beige couch, the plants, the floating shelves. And now it belonged to someone else. Paige followed up with a voice memo. Cameron had moved in the day they got back from Mexico. My mom had assumed she'd be staying with them for a while, but Cameron skipped the ride home entirely. Said she needed space. She didn't even move the stuff in herself. He had the new guy help her, the one in the video. My mom found out 2 days later when she stopped by the apartment to drop off some food, and saw through the window that Cameron wasn't alone. She called. Cameron didn't answer. She left a text that said she was outside. No reply. An hour later, Cameron sent a message that read, "You've done enough. I'm good now. Please stop showing up unannounced." That was it. No thank you. No explanation. No we'll talk soon. She blocked her. Phone, Instagram, everything. My mom spiraled. She tried driving to the apartment again the next day. Cameron wouldn't come to the door. She left a Tupperware container full of lasagna. The next morning it was still outside. Untouched. Then she tried emailing. Nothing. For the first time, maybe in her whole life, my mom had no control over the situation. No leverage. Cameron had the apartment, the furniture, the money, and no longer needed her. I won't lie. It was hard to feel bad for her. She'd spent years bending over backward for Cameron. Covering her rent. Fixing her messes. Lying for her. Hiding things from me. She once told me when Cameron got arrested for drunk driving at 22, that she couldn't afford to let this ruin her future. I was 26 at the time, working 2 jobs. No one covered anything for me. Now all that loyalty was worth nothing. And suddenly my mom was sitting in her quiet house, blinds drawn, obsessively refreshing her phone, wondering how it all flipped so fast. The last voicemail she left me that week, I'll never forget it. She said in the most broken voice I'd ever heard her use. "Cameron's not talking to me. She just cut me out. I don't understand. I don't even know what I did. Layla, please call me back. I don't know who else to talk to." I didn't. She hadn't asked about the baby. Not once. Not how I was doing. Not if I needed help. Not if we had everything ready. All she wanted was to be consoled about the daughter she chose over me. So when she showed up at my door the following week, 2 bags under her eyes, holding something wrapped in a baby blanket, I didn't know whether to slam the door or let her in. But she didn't come empty-handed. She had a folder in her hand. And what she handed me changed everything. She stood there in front of me, holding a pale blue baby blanket and a worn manila folder like it was some kind of peace offering. I hadn't seen her in person since before the baby shower. Her hair wasn't done. No makeup. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. I didn't invite her in. I just stood there waiting for her to say something first. He didn't. She just held the folder out like it was going to explain everything. I took it. Inside were documents. Property records, emails, a copy of the mortgage paperwork. All showing exactly what I'd already confirmed through my own digging. She had taken out a second mortgage on their home. Not a loan. A mortgage. Tied to her house. For Cameron. The apartment had been purchased entirely in her name. Cameron wasn't listed on anything. Not even as a co-signer. And yet, Cameron had blocked her without hesitation the second the papers were signed. I flipped through the pages feeling nothing. Just reading. Processing. She finally spoke. She said she didn't want to lose both her daughters. I asked her plainly, why didn't you tell me about the money? She said she thought I wouldn't notice. That it would have just been temporary. That she planned to move things around after the trip. I asked her, did you really think Cameron was going to pay you back? She didn't answer that. Instead, she started talking about the apartment. How Cameron had seemed so lost after the breakup. How she was scared she might hurt herself. How she thought giving her a place would be the one thing that finally made her feel stable. She said Cameron cried when she first saw it. Said it was the first time she'd seen her smile in weeks. I let her talk. Let her spin her story. And when she was done, I told her something I don't think she expected to hear. You didn't lose both your daughters. You gave one away. Her face dropped. I could tell she wasn't ready to hear it. Maybe she thought showing up with proof and a baby blanket would magically reset things. Like handing me paperwork and acting regretful was enough. Then I said something I hadn't planned to say, but it came out anyway. You're going to need that apartment. She looked confused. I said it again. You're going to need it. Because soon you won't have the house. She blinked like she hadn't thought that far ahead. Like it never crossed her mind that refinancing her home to buy Cameron a luxury apartment might actually cost her the roof over her own head. That's when I told her what I'd found out from the mortgage documents. The rate she'd locked in was brutal, and the payments were already late. She sat down on the porch steps like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. She whispered, more to herself than to me, that she never thought Cameron would cut her off. That's when I reminded her, I didn't cut her off. He did that to me. The second she chose to be in Mexico instead of at my baby shower. The second she tried to take $2,700 from my account without even asking. The second she decided Cameron needed her more. I didn't slam the door in her face. I didn't block her number. I didn't ignore her existence. She just hadn't noticed I was even here. Until Cameron didn't want her anymore. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes and asked quietly if she could meet the baby when she came. I didn't answer. I just closed the door. But I knew that wouldn't be the last time she showed up. My daughter was born 10 days later. It was a long labor, harder than I expected. Complications, some panic, an emergency team. But in the end she came out perfect. Healthy. Loud. Beautiful. My husband was the only one in the room with me. I didn't call anyone else. No updates, no photos posted right away, not even to the group chats. I just wanted quiet. I needed time to figure out how I felt about everything before I started letting people in. On the second day in the hospital after they moved us to recovery, a nurse came in and told me someone had dropped off a gift at the front desk. No name, just a soft yellow gift bag and a handwritten envelope. Inside was a simple baby blanket. Handmade. Pale pink and white. And the card said, I don't deserve to be there, but I still wanted her to have something from me. Mom. I didn't cry. I just stared at it. Because for a second it felt familiar. Like the mom I remembered from when I was little. The one who used to knit little scarves for my dolls. The one who stayed up sewing my Halloween costumes. That version of her hadn't been around in years. Still, I left the bag in the hospital room when we were discharged. At home things moved quickly. Sleepless nights. Feedings every 2 hours. Diaper changes on autopilot. I was exhausted, but I was finally at peace. For the first time in months there was no chaos. Cameron didn't reach out. Not a word. But a week after we got home, my phone buzzed with a Venmo notification. $1,350 deposited from Mom. Then another a few minutes later. $1,000. Then the last. $350. The exact amount she had tried to take from my account. I stared at the screen. I hadn't demanded the money back. Hadn't even mentioned it since I froze the account. But there it was. Quietly returned. No text. No note. And it didn't stop there. A few days later, I found out from Aunt Linda that my mom had stopped paying for Cameron's apartment. She'd shut off the utilities in her name. Stopped sending food. Cancelled the second mortgage autopay and told the bank she'd be letting the property go unless Cameron took over. Apparently, Cameron didn't respond. She was still living there, but now it wasn't paid for. My mom told Linda, "I'm done saving people who don't want to be saved." And just like that, everything shifted. She started sending texts again. Small ones. "How are you sleeping? Does she have enough formula? I have some baby clothes in storage. Can I drop them off?" I didn't reply. But I didn't block her either. I just watched. Waited. Then one day she showed up again. Not unannounced. This time she texted first. "Only if you want me to. No pressure. Just thought maybe you'd want a break." I stared at that message for a long time. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I knew this was the moment where the power had quietly shifted. For the first time she was asking. Not demanding. Not assuming. Just asking. And for the first time I got to decide what kind of mother she was allowed to be. She didn't know it yet. But she was going to have to earn it. 3 weeks after she sent that message, I let her come over. Just for an hour. She didn't bring flowers or a big gift bag. No cameras. No expectations. She showed up with a container of homemade soup and a pack of diapers. I opened the door and she asked, "Can I come in?" Not, "Let me see the baby." Not, "I'm your mother." Just a question. That was the first time in a long time she didn't treat my life like something she was entitled to. The baby was asleep in her bassinet. My mom walked in slowly, took her shoes off by the door, and looked around like she didn't recognize the space. She'd been here before, but not like this. Not on my terms. We didn't talk about Cameron. Not at first. We didn't talk about the money. Or the baby shower. Or the apartment. She sat on the couch, quietly watching her granddaughter sleep, and I sat across from her, sipping cold coffee. About halfway through the visit, she asked me if I was still angry. I told her the truth. "Yes, I am. But I'm more tired than I am angry." She nodded like she expected that. Then she said something I hadn't heard her say in years. "I know I hurt you. And I know I can't take it back." She didn't make excuses. She didn't bring up what she had done for the family. She didn't mention Cameron once. She just owned it. I didn't forgive her that day. That would have been too easy. Forgiveness isn't something I hand out like favors anymore. But I saw something shift in her. She started coming over once a week. Not barging in. Always asking first. Always checking if we needed anything. She'd fold laundry while I napped. Cook dinner while the baby cried. She never pushed to hold her. He waited until I offered. And when I did, I watched her hands shake a little. She whispered the baby's name like it was a prayer. I knew right then she wasn't faking the regret. And slowly, very slowly, I let her back in. A few months later, she sold her car to make the mortgage payment she'd defaulted on. Not to fix Cameron's mess, she let that go completely. The apartment eventually went into foreclosure. Cameron never responded. Still hasn't. When my daughter turned 6 months old, my mom asked if she could throw a small party. Just us, my husband and her. I said yes. That day she gave me a small box. Inside was a gold bracelet engraved with my daughter's initials. And mine. No dramatic speeches. No tears. Just a quiet moment between a woman who broke something and a woman who was slowly choosing to rebuild it. Carefully and with conditions. I don't know if I'll ever trust her fully again. Some things don't go back the way they were. But I do know this: she finally sees me. Not as the strong one. Not as the one who can handle it. Just as her daughter. And that might be enough.